Good morning.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm all right. You?
I'm good, yes. You founded a company, this film.
Yeah.
How long ago?
It was 15 years ago when I moved up from London to Harrogate. It was, back in the day, it was called VWP, actually. It changed to this film in 2017 when we moved to a limited company. However, yes, I moved up from London. I'm originally from the north anyway. And absolutely loved Harrogate and all its entrepreneurs that I seem to come across all the time. So set the business up with a view to bringing all the filmmaking knowledge that I had previously to the smaller, medium businesses in the area and show them that you can actually make a film a lot cheaper with a lot less people. And got the tagline, this film needn't be a drama, which is where this film eventually came from. So,
how would you define your company, this film?
So we are a film production company. We specialise in short form documentaries, telling stories about people's stories, and we also do creative corporate films and brand films, promos, event films. The only thing I don't do is weddings, quite frankly. But yeah, we do lots and lots of things, lots of interesting people.
Yeah. Would you say you come from a creative family background?
No, not in the slightest, no. I come from a fabulous background, back over in near Halifax, but nobody in my family is creative at all. My mum looked after old people, my dad worked in factories, so no, where that's come from, nobody knows.
What did you go on to do in university?
So I always wanted to make films. I knew that. I always wanted to work in the TV or films or something. That was always a given. I always had, again, like a bit of a creative view to life. So I originally went to North Wales and I did a degree in audiovisual communication. Back in the day, I mean, this is 20 odd years ago now, well, longer actually, I think. And so I did that, and then I worked for a little while, came back, lived in Manchester, and I worked for free for quite a long time, working with the BBC on a couple of drama series, for free this is, and I always gravitated towards the art department, and I would get paid in set dressings, so I'd end up taking stuff home from the set. And then I worked on a couple of films for a couple of production companies, and then I went to Leeds and I started being paid to work. I worked for ITV for a little while, and I worked on things like Emmerdale and all the ITV things. I also worked on Countdown, which used to come and film in the ITV studios, and I was in charge of the Countdown Conundrum. Oh yeah, and then I moved down to London. And that's when that started. Yeah.
How would you say the skills you learned from that are applied to what you do today?
So what I didn't actually say is after I'd done all that, I went to Leeds and did a degree in interior design because I wanted to be a production designer. So in terms of interior design skills, I mean, that's just, that didn't get used at all apart from in the house, of course. But the audiovisual communication course that I did, I mean, it's so long ago, things have changed so massively. I literally learnt to edit, cutting and splicing, honest to God. So those things aren't necessarily relevant. It's a long time ago. I think, I don't know. I don't know what courses are offering these days, to be honest. So what I learn is what I've learnt from getting out and doing it myself.
So you'd say that filmmaking something small and practically instead of a books kind of course? Yeah,
I mean, I've always been very hands-on with it. It's always been very hands-on. Yeah, I don't know what you can learn in a book. There is one book that I do like, but I think you have to get out there and do it.
What's that book called?
Oh, it's editing, so it's In the Blink of an Eye by Walter Murch.
The Walter Murch one, yeah. That's a good book.
I met him a few weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He signed my book.
Oh.
He's a bit of a legend.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, Return of Ozman himself. I noticed that on your website there's a plethora of quotes from a lot of directors, and excluding Walter Murch.
Oh yeah, I suppose, yeah.
Then who would you say are some of your big influences?
Well, so this is the thing, because like we were just saying, I was hands-on, and the courses that I did were not, I was never a film student. I was never one of those people that sat pouring through books and learning about theories and things like that. So I don't have that kind of thing. People often say to me about directors and stuff, and I go, I don't know. I like what I like. In terms of films, I'm more of an emotional person, so I like the things that take me back to a time, so all the films that I loved when I was little, like Labyrinth and Beetlejuice and things like that. Those are the emotional punch is what I love. In terms of people, like we were just saying, Walter Murch, obviously, because of my kind of love of documentaries, I tend to get around to festivals as and when I can. Because there's a lot of really, really good documentary festivals. I don't know if you know that the Sheffield is the biggest one. There's Aesthetica in York. There's Leeds Festival. We're surrounded by some really good stuff around here. Yeah. And at Aesthetica a few years ago, I met a guy called Ed Perkins, who's a documentary maker, and he called himself the Predator, which sounds awful, but it's producer, director, editor.
Yeah.
And that's what I am, which you don't find very often in the industry, because people like you to be one thing or the other, not all of the things. And he did, he tells stories in such a magnificent way, and of course he kind of does a lot of it himself, which is what I tend to do. He did a film called Tell Me Who I Am, which is brilliant. Look it up if you ever. And then another person is Brett Morgan.
Yeah.
Do you know him? He did the Moon Age Daydream film, David Bowie.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Literally did it in his bedroom.
Yeah.
I met him as well at Sheffield a few years ago, and during lockdown he trawled through hundreds and hundreds of hours of David Bowie footage, and literally said he had his edit machine next to his bed and would just get up and put sections together. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That is bonkers. So yeah, love him.
What were you up to during lockdown?
Jigsaws. I did make a film that went quite viral actually, and that was just on my phone walking around town.
Oh, what was it? Where can people find it?
Well, it's on my Vimeo and all that sort of stuff. But it was just a moment in time. Obviously, the weather was beautiful, wasn't it? It was all the messages in shop windows that really got to me. Just saying, look after yourselves, take care, we'll be back.
Yeah.
And I was just mesmerised by the whole thing, and I just went around filming it with my phone. And then I know a local band who had a piece of music, and they let me have this piece of music, and I just put it all together and just put it out there. And I tell you what the story was actually, because my mum used to come over to Harrogate all the time pre-lockdown. She still does now, but during that period of time, obviously she couldn't see her, we didn't know, and she was just like, I just miss Harrogate. So I said, well, here you go. This is what Harrogate looks like right now. So there you go, and it seemed to hit a nerve.
Yeah.
So.
You say that that Harrogate is like this big part of your journey into making film.
Yeah.
So would you say that setting generally is something that really influences the stuff you make, or would you say it's more the people? People. The people.
Yeah, people. I mean, Harrogate is where I live, and I love it. But we go all over the place and do lots of different things. I mean, yeah, it's the people, and one of my favourite things that we do. Which I've just literally handed over yesterday, is a big edit that we do every year. So it's social impact reports, and we travel around the country talking to different social enterprises. And literally, I mean, it's dead simple stuff. You're just filming people, but you're just listening to them and hearing what they're saying and the things that they do, and it's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Every year we do it for a company in Sheffield, and it is the most brilliant thing that we do, simplest thing that we do, but people. It's all about people.
Yeah. Recently, your company had this really big success and award success with a short documentary made for Sky Arts,
Yeah.
Working Class Heroes.
Yeah.
Working with Sky Arts and a big company like that, you talked about working with companies like NHS and other
Yeah.
companies like that, but working with a big production company like that, how would you describe that process to someone?
Well, it was kind of funny because it was like when I worked down in London I worked down in London for like 10 years making films within agencies and within business, within companies, so events companies, corporate events and things like that. Mm-hmm. And that's what turned me off, because there were so many people on set, there were so many people standing around, and I just thought, you don't need all these people. What are you paying for all these people for, And it was kind of reminiscent a little bit again with Sky. So you've got, if you look at the credits of the film, I probably shouldn't say this, but if you look at the credits of the film, there's 50 people's names on there.
Yeah.
And there was only 4 of us that actually really contributed to that film. They put the money in. I didn't even see most of those people. And then at the end of the day, I kind of wrote it. The idea came from a PR agency. The story came from there. Mm-hmm. And then I met the guy and wrote a piece around him. So what my process was, if you're interested, I went to meet him, recorded him on my phone, chatted to him for a couple of hours, and then went back, listened and crafted a story around what he said. Yeah. And then we went, right, what do we want this to look like? Kind of put the visuals to the narration. And did it from there. So and then I directed it. We got a cinematographer they had to have a cinematographer with credits, with like IMDb credits and things like that. We got somebody up. He did a cracking job, and we made it. And then I edited it all. But then you'd send the edit off to people who I don't know who they were, and they would come back and say, "I don't think that bit really works." And you're like, well, that's my favourite bit, actually. Yeah. And that hurts because, being your own boss and everything, I think working with corporate film, people are coming to you to be creative and they're trusting you with their business, actually. Mm-hmm. So when you it's hard not to be really precious about it. I think it's Walter Murch that says about kill your darlings, isn't it? Yeah. When you're editing, you really have to, you can end up with a 40-minute film really easily when you're only trying to make a 10-minute film. Yeah. Because you're just like, oh, I love that shot. Oh, I love that shot. But yeah, so that was hard because, and then I can remember I fought against it when they'd come back and say, I don't really like that bit. I don't think that's needed. And I would sort of say, but I think it is actually. Yeah. And then they would come back and say, no, that's mandatory. That's a mandatory change. Yeah. And you're like, right. So that was weird. But then that's why you do a director's cut afterwards.
Yeah. So you've released a director's cut of that? Oh, okay.
That's the one that's winning at the festivals.
Oh, right, okay. So you've been in this industry for 20 plus years.
Yeah, quite a long time.
What would you say are some of the big highlights of that?
The highlights for me are getting backstage. Yeah. Like a media pass. I love a media pass. And you can just go anywhere and do anything. I love getting behind the scenes of a business, or walking into somewhere for the first time. A few years ago we did a series of films for automotive car springs, and it was, on paper it doesn't sound particularly brilliant, but it was fantastic. We got to travel around Europe. Mm-hmm. And we went to all these different factories we spent like 4 days travelling around Sweden, going to all the different factories, and we went to Norway, we went to Latvia, we went all over the place. just going into these enormous manufacturing like behemoths and seeing how things worked, and we made some really beautiful films from it. So stuff like that, when you just see things that people ordinarily every day don't.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Well, thank you very much for this interview.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much for lovely to meet you.
Yeah, lovely to meet you. Finally,
Yes.
I know
Yes.
it's taken a while.
Yes. Anyway, thank you. Very, very good.
Welcome.
There you go. Well, I'm
Happy. Oh, light's still on. Thank
Light's
God.
still on.